Coming up next on Arizona Horizon's Journalists Roundtable, we'll have the latest on the governor's budget and Medicaid expansion plans. Former Maricopa County Attorney Andrew Thomas announces that he's running for governor. And a new poll shows Senator John McCain's job approval rating at its lowest in 21 years. Those stories and more next on the Journalists Roundtable.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon's Journalists Roundtable. I'm Ted Simons. Joining me tonight are Jeremy Duda from the Arizona Capital Times, Mike Sunnix of the Phoenix Business Journal, and Steve Goldstein of KJZZ Radio. A letter from the feds and some legislative intrigue accompany the latest Medicaid expansion news. Let's start with this letter from the feds, Jeremy. They basically came out and cleared the air a little bit on what?
On exactly what we can do with our Medicaid program at the end of the year and still get federal funding. This is a question we've been waiting, 4 or 5 months on, and it's been kind of a key talking point for Governor Brewer in supporting her Medicaid expansion plan. Under our current agreement with the U.S. Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services, or I think I got those backwards, but under that we get what's called a demonstration waiver. We get 2-to-1 matching funds from the feds. They cover 2/3 of it. And under that agreement, that's what allowed us to do this freeze, this enrollment freeze for childless adults, which is, the numbers have dwindled. There'll be about 60,000 left at the end of the year. And the governor's office and Access have always said, they're not going to renew that. They're not going to allow us to do that and still give us the federal funds. But we'd never gotten a clear answer on that. And yesterday, just as her opponents were getting ready for a big rally against Medicaid expansion, very timely, they got their answer. And they said, no, we are not going to do this. So if we want to continue covering those last 60,000 people, which includes people getting cancer treatment and people who've still been on it for years now, we're going to have to cover it with state money only, which for the first 3 years would cost $850 to $880 million probably.
Indeed, the governor's office sent out kind of a letter to everyone listing 4 different options now for the state, including hers, which was the only one, according to this letter, that's even remotely viable.
Yeah, the other one, some of them were repugnant and fiscally irresponsible, and surprisingly, the governor's plan was the best one. Actually, this kind of works for both sides of this debate. Obviously, the governor can point to this, like Jeremy said, and say, look, we have to do what she wants and expand it and bring those childless adults back in there to get the money. But the folks on the other side, one of their arguments is if we sign up for this, we're beholden to the feds all the time for money. We're mandated by them. We don't have any control in this. And State President Biggs was talking about that. Let's just do a state-only program. We can do it ourselves. We don't have to listen to the Obama administration or the feds on this. So I think both sides can kind of play that issue a little bit.
Really, is this viable at all?
I don't know all the numbers, Ted, but the Senate President wants to go with the Rainy Day Fund. The governor's spokesman, Matt Benson, says there's absolutely no way the Rainy Day Fund would run out within 2 years, and where would we be at that point? I think the most interesting thing politically is that Senate President Biggs was leading this charge, as Jerry mentioned, the rally that happened on Thursday, and he is saying, I don't want this to even come to a vote on the floor. And who knows, there may be a palace coup coming at some point.
And thus the intrigue. So let's get to this aspect of the story, because we've had Senate President Biggs on. The leadership shows up once a month, and we cover a variety of issues. And he's been relatively adamant that he's not a big fan of this, and it doesn't sound like he's going to want to go much forward with this. Could the king be dead and we'll see a new king?
Potentially. Biggs put his foot down this week. He said, I'll do everything in my power to bring this to the floor. He's going to, he decided he's going to die on this hill. He said the only way it gets to the Senate floor is if I get rolled, in his words. And that's what some of the chatter is. There's a couple of possibilities here. One, the nuclear option, the most serious one would be deposing him as Senate President, which you would only need 16 people for, which means you'd have to get the small handful of Republicans in the Senate who are, outright supporters of Medicaid expansion and join with the 13 Democrats and choose one of those, few Republicans as the new Senate President. And that's one option. The other is there are a number of procedural moves that could be used to bring this to a vote without his approval, because normally it's the Senate President and the House Speaker who decide what comes to the floor, what gets assigned to committee, what actually gets a vote. But with a simple majority, they can push this straight past them. They can bring up for a vote. They can suspend the rules and the normal Senate rules and force a late introduction of a bill. So there's a few options here.
How likely is any of those options? How likely?
Well, the nuclear option, as Jeremy mentioned, is unlikely, because I think the feeling is that Senate President Biggs is not going to, once he sees what's going on behind the scenes and actually talks to people who are in fact in favor of Medicaid expansion in his caucus, then some are hoping he'll at least see the light of day and allow a vote to happen. I had State Senator Rich Crandall on my program this week, and he is the one who really he brought up the nuclear option, but he brought it up on the air. This was not a private behind-the-scenes discussion. He's saying if it comes to this, and if I go back a little ancient history to a few months ago when the leadership was chosen, when Senate President Steve Pearce was sort of undercut and Senate President Biggs went in, a lot of the so-called moderate Republicans were very unhappy with that, and they've been unhappy with Biggs' leadership so far.
This is showing fissures here on the Republican side in general, Senate in particular. How far does this go?
It's going to be a tough go, I think, because if they do this in the Senate, that might embolden the opposition in the House to this. And at that rally that Jeremy mentioned, they were kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall. They felt like they were emboldened in their opposition to this. They don't like Obamacare. They're tying in the abortion issue and Planned Parenthood funding. They've thrown out this state option to just do that themselves. They've really questioned whether we should jump onto this federal bandwagon. There's other Republican states, Texas, Louisiana, that aren't doing this. So we're not in a bubble here. So I think that the fear is if you go after Biggs and you push this through the Senate, can you keep the votes in the House?
But Jeremy, let's look at the four options here. The first option is you keep the freeze covering the remaining childless adults, $850 some odd million, as you mentioned, over the next 3 some odd years. End the freeze, you reinstate the 2-to-1 match, but you're talking like $1 billion or something over the next 3 years. Eliminate coverage for everyone. That's where the morally repugnant comment from the governor came in. That's not going to fly, I don't think, to anyone. And then there's the governor's plan. I mean, that's really what they have to work with, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the governor's theme for months now. Do the math, do the math, do the math. She says that every time she talks about Medicaid, and this kind of bolsters her point of view. But some people, they like the idea of this state-only plan for the remaining childless adults, even if it costs more, even though it costs $850 million over 3 years, like you guys mentioned. Wipe out the rainy day fund that they worked so hard to put back together. But I was talking with Republican Representative Warren Peterson, who's kind of the headliner of this anti-Medicaid expansion rally the other day. And, and I asked him, I said, this will cost a lot more than the state's share of the governor's Medicaid plan. He said, yeah, but once you get past a few years, you look down the road, we don't know what's going to happen. This is a very long-term plan. This will be cheaper down the road because we have no idea what's going to happen. And the governor's plan down the road might end up costing us a lot more than we think.
Yeah, the opponents keep coming back to 2004 and 2000, saying that the estimates, the cost, the number of people enrolled were never even close to what was promised, folks. So they keep referencing that, and that's their fear: is they're going to get either caught up in some kind of program where they're going to have much more people, much more cost than is promised, or the feds at some point are going to pull the rug out from under us, and we're going to be paying for this.
As far as the palace coup, any names as a successor?
Well, there's really only 4 or 5 possibilities. You have to get, one of the Republicans who would be supportive of the governor's plan, and that really leaves you with, Bob Worsley's a freshman, so you could probably leave him out. It really leaves you with 4. You have Steve Pearce, the, deposed Senate president from, after the last election. You have Adam Driggs, you have John McComish, you have Rich Crandall, who, to talk about that to you, Steve, and, he's actually going to be resigning at the end of the session, I believe. So I don't know if that makes him a more appealing or less appealing candidate.
If there's anybody, and I don't even say this is viable, to me McComish is the only viable person. He's someone who's shown he can work both sides of it. He also is very soft-spoken and doesn't like to be out there too boldly. And I think when leadership was set up before the session started, the idea was you've got Biggs, more conservative, and then you have McComish and Driggs, who are more moderates. That was supposed to balance out the leadership.
It sounds like, though, he would be a reluctant king, doesn't it, though?
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah,
and that's why I don't think this is going to happen.
Yeah, and it would seem like Crandall might make the best sense because he'd be an interim king and interim president, and he's gone, and then they can do the rough and tumble business of finding out who really will run.
And East Valley Republicans, both Andy Biggs and Rich Crandall, East Valley, I did boy.
Yeah.
And since he's stepping down, he'd have no political repercussions later on to deal with either.
And 100-day session, by the way, Mike, 100-day session kind of came
Didn't quite make it this
came
time.
and went, and it's really not much is getting done down there.
No, they're on Medicaid, and I think it's a waiting game. I think that's the governor's final trump card, is just waiting them out. And it's the power of one, the power of the executive against this part-time legislature that doesn't like being in the valley when it's hot. So
Yes,
I think that's one of her last plays on this.
Well, and even the idea that next week they're going to start 3-day sessions because everything is slowed to such a crawl, I think this shows in some ways how absurd this is. But another thing, Governor Brewer may just be a battle of attrition. She's in her office. She may turn down the air conditioning a little bit, as Mike has suggested before, and just make it really, really warm down there.
And she still has priorities. You got the sales tax reform. You've got Common Core, which, by the way, survived. I guess there was some sort of attempt to kill Common Core. That didn't quite make it. So she has other priorities as well.
Yeah, and the biggest one, of course, is Medicaid. And they're still trying to work at some of the details of the sales tax thing. The Common Core thing is working its way through, but you can't get out of this. Ultimately, you can't get out of this session until you have a budget, and you can't deal with the budget until you figure out what's going to happen with Medicaid. And like you guys said, the governor can just wait them out. I think she's willing to just be here through September if she has to.
The challenge for her, though, is she can't horse trade much with some of these Republican folks. They don't want anything. They don't want any pork barrel stuff. They want smaller government, and so there's not a lot of bills out there. They've done abortion bills. There's some gun bills, but I don't think she's going to go far to the right on that. And these folks in the Republican side that are worried, they're looking at people to their right, challenge them in the primary. They're not worried about the folks on Medicaid. They're not worried about the governor probably as much as we think. They're worried about somebody coming in the primary and challenge him on this, saying, you voted for Obamacare.
Well, and forgive me for being naive about the world of politics, because we've all covered it for a long time, but I saw a quote from Andy Biggs, which was, I'm worried at this point about what we're going to run into in the primary vote. And I feel like the general public doesn't vote in the primaries. And if this becomes a Republican battle, okay, it's still a Republican state. That matters, I guess, but to the population at large, I don't think it does, unless maybe it matters more to the voting public.
Well, and the governor, she met with about 15 to 20 Republican lawmakers last week, and one of the arguments that she was trying to make, which other expansion supporters have made, is, well, if we don't do this, the voters are going to punish us next November. They're going to give, they could give power to the Democrats. Republicans are going to lose their seats. They could lose statewide races. But the Republicans who are, opposed to this plan or are on the fence, that's not what they're worried about. To get to a general election, you have to get out of your primary first, and people are already recruiting primary opponents against Republican lawmakers who are supporting the expansion.
There's a lot of parallels to how Republicans are acting on Medicaid here to how Republicans in Washington voted on gun control. All the polls showed widespread support for background checks, but Republican primary voters, not so much. And I think a lot of Republicans still work in that mindset, like Steve said.
All right, let's keep it moving here. Steve, let's talk about the governor's race. After all, it's only next year.
Well, Andrew Thomas is going to become de facto governor, Ted, based on what we saw today.
Okay.
Was that too bold? I'm sorry.
What did we see today?
Well, Jeremy was actually there. I think all of us received the email message from former county attorney disbarred Andrew Thomas, who has said that he is going to fight corruption, as he always has. He is going to make border security a major priority. And now that he's announced, he says that polls are going to show him as a major contender to be governor of Arizona.
Mike, is this news that he wants to run for governor and is going to run for governor, is this stunning news or is it shocking news?
I would say I'll go with stunning instead of shocking. I mean, obviously, first glance, you don't think Andy Thomas has much of a chance. But we had Ev Meekum as governor, and it's how many people are in the race? 15, 20 people at some point. So when you get a crowded race, he could make a little noise. He's certainly not considered a front runner. He's got a lot of baggage. Interesting to see how he can raise any kind of money and who would support him.
Yeah, but this wouldn't be like electing Evan Meekum in 1986. This would be like electing him in 1990 after he'd been impeached. I mean, this guy was disbarred last year. This is the former county attorney, almost won the primary for attorney general in 2010, and he has lost his license to practice law. He couldn't even run for attorney general again.
But Evan Meekum was a car salesman. And no disrespect to car salesmen, but I feel like Evan Meekum defeated one of the most respected politicians in the history of this state in a primary because no one took him seriously. Now, I will never, ever, Ted, as long as the tape is running, predict Andrew Thomas to win this. But if you get 8 people and he was able to get the conservative vote, who knows?
Not just 8 people, Jeremy, but his presence there, in terms of the dynamic, in terms of how it disrupts a Republican primary, I mean, doesn't that change the water level there?
A little bit. I mean, this will suck a lot of air out of the room because he's going to get a lot of attention just because of who he is. But he's going to be competing for the hard right of the Republican base. As is another candidate who announced this week, Senator Al Melvin's probably going to be going for a lot of those same folks. But I was talking to one Republican consultant today who said he can't win, but he can have an impact. So he can take away votes from other candidates, namely State Treasurer Doug Ducey, who solid conservative. People like him. A lot of people view him as one of the leading candidates. He appeals to conservative voters. And he's got a lot of opponents. And if Thomas and Melvin and someone else can start siphoning votes away from him, that could help some of these other challengers like Scott Smith, Hugh Hallman, Ken Bennett, who knows?
I would say if wedge issues, immigration, some of the social issues, same-sex marriage, abortion, pop up, then Andy's adept at that, at least publicly and campaigning wise, and he could have that kind of impact. But I think one thing that really hurts him is the fact he ran for Attorney General twice and didn't win. So I think when you're out trying to raise money, not only being disbarred, you got to convince people I was a 2-time loser. Why are you going to be able to do better after being disbarred?
I'm not allowed to practice law, but please vote for me for governor? I mean, how far can you take something like that?
I think some of us think at this point that all of the stress he's been through, the disciplinary hearing, the feeling that there was corruption, that he was being fought by powerful forces, the feeling is that perhaps has his own sense of reality at this point and isn't really listening to sensible advisors.
You have to remember, even if he has no chance of winning a primary, he still has, as one person put it to me today, a core base of 15, maybe as many as 20% of the Republican electorate. And those people believe in him. They believe he was wrong. They believe he was unfairly targeted for going after corrupt officials, and they're going to vote for him.
Those are the people who vote in primaries too.
And if you get 20% in that primary, you're pretty far up there.
All right, let's go to the Democratic side. Fred Duvall makes it official. I don't think anything's shocking or stunning about that because he's lined up a lot of endorsements. Talk about his candidacy and what he expects to face first in the primary and then perhaps in a general.
I think the primary is pretty interesting, Ted, because I think that once Richard Carmona, decided he was not going to run, that really opened up the field. And this idea that Fred Duvall is the most attractive Democrat, I think might not bode well for Democrats in the general election, in the sense that Fred Duvall's only run for office once. He ran for Congress, tried to sort of make himself into a rural Arizona in which no one really believed. He wasn't able to win the congressional race. He is someone with a great history, worked for Bruce Babbitt for many years, former governor, former Interior Secretary, worked in the Clinton administration. No one doubts his capability. When I see Fred Duvall, I think a little bit of a nicer, friendlier version of Mitt Romney. Someone who is clearly capable, very well groomed, but maybe isn't ready for the rough and tumble of politics.
Well, I was going to ask about that. I mean, Duvall seems obviously policy-oriented, that kind of a guy, seems to want to work across the aisle, all those good sort of things. But can he get down and dirty and nasty and win what could be a really volatile governor's race?
Yeah, I think he'd have a chance if you see a kind of a wounded Republican come out of there. If they really mess things up in their primary, in the legislature, things can change a lot in politics. Obviously, the economy, those types of things, immigration, how that issue goes. If you see somebody come out that's kind of wounded, or it's such a big race in the Republican side, such a crowded race, that you see somebody come out with, well, say Andy Thomas comes out of there. I mean, obviously, would be an extreme example. You can see something like that. So somebody that's wounded, if you could, like in 2010, when Brewer came out, she came out strong. She had 1070 behind her. Terry Gardner had no chance. If somebody comes out strong, he's definitely the underdog.
What you've seen, in the past week, you've got obviously some of Duvall's supporters are really hoping that he can, cruise through the primary and take on some wounded Republican after some, brutal 6, 7, 10, 20-way primary or whatever. And you've seen some of Duvall's supporters in the past week urging House Minority Leader Chad Campbell, who's probably going to be the other Democrat in the race. They're urging him to not get in, saying, Duvall's the guy. You should clear the field for him. And Duvall himself isn't saying it, but his supporters are. And it's clear that he's trying to create really a sense of inevitability about his nomination in the Democratic primary. They've lined up all these endorsements. They've got in really early. He's raising money, and they're trying to build up as much momentum as they can right now while he's the only guy in the race.
I think there's something in the general election too that I think voters want to be excited about people. It's hard at this point as we see negative ratings for the legislature, negative ratings for Congress. Duvall is not Jan Brewer, who can really go hardcore. He's not going to get people as excited as Dr. Carmona did in that Senate race. So again, it's going to have to come down to this feeling of we want someone who will work across the aisle, who is very capable, as opposed to someone who's going to get us fired up.
There's so many big issues that are in flux right now: immigration, guns, same-sex marriage, Medicaid, Obamacare. What kind of Democrat will Fred be when he runs in the general election? Does that still doesn't play real well here in this state?
What kind of country will this be? Yeah. What kind of state will this be in terms of the economy, in terms of variety? We just had bombings in Boston. No one expected that. That could change the landscape as well. Who is Mark Brnovich, and does Tom Horne need to be worried about him?
He's the state gaming director. He worked for the Goldwater Institute. He's been a private attorney, pretty well respected in legal circles, and people are talking about running against Tom Horne, who's had some problems lately. An investigation about his campaign finance, much tabloid-like FBI following him around to see who his personal friends are outside of work. And Horne is definitely somewhat wounded, and so there's folks they're kind of looking out there. the thing is Horn is a good candidate. He's beaten a lot of people. He beat Rodolini, he beat Andy Thomas, and for whatever faults people find in Horn, he's a smart politician. And I think Mark would definitely be the underdog in that. But he's looking at the race.
Any other Republicans likely to take on Horn at all, you think? No, I don't think so.
I've heard a lot of names, but most of them have shot it down. Brnovich is the first name I've heard who, as a potential challenger, who actually was looking at it. But, it's a long way to the race. Who knows? A lot of people might be waiting to see how these court cases play out. We haven't gone to court on pretty much any of this stuff. Horn's going to be in court next week to try and get basically MCAO tossed off of the case, challenging Bill Montgomery's right to even prosecute him. If he loses that, then we will finally start seeing the first court action on this.
I think many people are anticipating we would just see a Horn-Rodolini rematch. It'd be interesting to see contested primaries, Horn against Brnovich, and then Rodolini against Terry Goddard.
You think Terry Goddard is still looking at that, huh?
I think he's looking at it.
Yeah, okay. That would be very interesting.
The thing about Brnovich is sometimes in politics you just got to run, right? You luck out, and the incumbent, the guy that's supposed to win, something happens, and you step in there, and then you're golden after that. And sometimes it's willing to take that chance one time when people don't think you're going to win. Folks like us say you'd be the underdog, but a lot of Horn's got some baggage right now, and things could get worse for him.
Speaking real quickly, what's going on with John McCain's approval rating here? 21-year low. Is this just fatigue? Is it just folks saying we're not crazy about him, but you haven't given us an option?
Whereas the latest Rocky Mountain poll from Behavior Research Center, the thing I think that stood out to me was this idea that 2/3, I think it was 67%, said it's time for a new senator with new ideas. And that struck me the most because in Arizona, if you elect a moderate to conservative Republican, the ideas are going to be kind of the same. So it sounds like, based on this survey, we're sort of tired of McCain. His peak numbers were in 2005, and I think that's kind of interesting, too. That's when he was on the national stage. We saw a lot of him, and now since then, I think after 2008, his numbers went down. People saw him as a little bit crankier, someone who wasn't working across the aisle. I'm curious to see what happens based on his gun control vote. If immigration reform passes, will the popularity go up again?
And we should mention that this survey was taken by Behavior Research Center before both gun control vote and immigration proposal.
If you look at his disapproval ratings, it's about 33% for conservatives, for liberals, and for moderates. So John is all over the place on issues because he's a maverick, right? So conservatives don't like him on immigration. They may not like him on gun control anymore. Liberals don't like him for his criticism of the president on foreign policy, maybe some of his more hawkish policies. The thing is no one's going to beat John McCain. Anyone that have a chance that would run against John McCain is not going to run against John McCain. They're going to wait it out. And the one thing about the poll was if they asked people if rating good and fair, that was about 53%. So that's about where our president is at and most incumbents are at.
And again, there's no other option. It's one thing to say I'm not crazy about the guy, but if he runs against an Andrew Thomas, who seems to be running for everything right now, so we'll just throw him in there. There might be a different result.
This is probably a dream for all of us, and there's the dynamic where Senator McCain was complaining about Secretary Napolitano this week. Oh, if they could ever run against each other.
That would be interesting. Before we go, Don Shooter's troubles seem to continue a little bit now. We have, more witnesses down here? More folks want to see charges pressed?
Potentially, yeah. You got a couple more employees at this charter school in Yuma, and 3 students who were in the classroom who are wanting charges. It's hard to say whether or not the police will actually file those charges. I'm not sure. I'm not sure on what grounds the students actually would have. At some point, it kind of just seems like piling on for the sake of piling on because he's a prominent figure, because of who he is. So, he's an important politician. He's got enemies. So
again, accused of disrupting his grandson's charter school class because he thought the grandson was being bullied by the teacher. Yes. He is the Senate Appropriations Chair. So when does the ethics investigation start?
Oh, I don't know. We'll have to see when that happens. Probably after they get done with Medicaid, right?
Yeah.
The cell phone footage that somebody took during this certainly doesn't help him PR-wise, or with the political pressure on the legislature, because that's been on the news a lot, and a lot of people have seen that.
And what do you think? What do you think of his future here?
Well, I think what's disturbing is that he used the old celebrity line of basically, don't you know who I am, and I'm this powerful senator. That never looks good.
And we're getting kind of weird conflicting reports on that, though, aren't we?
He apparently called the head of the, I believe, the Charter School Association, and there were initial reports that he said, "Hey, I want this hush-up quality," but now it seems more like it's this woman, the head of the Charter School Association, who kind of wanted it hushed up, that he may not have been the one who said, "Hey, do you know who I am?" but it may have been, her saying, hey, do you know who this guy is?
All right. Well, I can tell you what time it is. It's time for us to wrap it up. Good to have you all here. Thanks for joining us. Monday on Arizona Horizon, we'll go into greater detail on the state's options regarding Medicaid funding. And ASU pollster Bruce Merrill takes an early look at the options for the next governor's race. That's Monday evening, 5:30 and 10 on Arizona Horizon. Tuesday, a debate on the pros and cons of Phoenix police officers doing union work while on the job. Wednesday, it's our weekly legislative update with the Arizona Capitol Times. Thursday, former U of A professor Guy McPherson will tell us about living off the grid. And Friday, it's another edition of the Journalists Roundtable. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great weekend.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.